The coronavirus is contagious, but you know what else is contagious? Anxiety about the coronavirus. There is so much anxiety and fear and worry and also a shortage of toilet paper that we need to talk about how you can cope, how you can stay sane and healthy during this time of worry and fear and crisis. So stick around. Hey there, welcome back. In case you are new here or we don't know each other, my name is Dr. Allison and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I've seriously made it my life mission to really simplify psychology to help you live a healthier and more meaningful life. And this video is a little bit of a departure from my normal content, but given what's going on in the world with the coronavirus and how on edge and anxious and fearful people are, I decided to create this video to really help people manage their fear and panic during this time of crisis.
Millions of Americans around the country. Life today
pandemic
is
panic.
Millions of lives are being
Even more flights
Spreading pandemic, the country and the world are today
all day.
continues to either cancel classes or
If you are watching clips like these regularly, then my guess is you are well aware of the anxiety and the panic and the fear that can take over. This is something I've been hearing and seeing a lot lately. I'm seeing it play out on social media, and it's coming up a lot in my therapy sessions with clients, and my colleagues all across the country are echoing the same thing, that people are incredibly panicked and anxious about the coronavirus. And I'll be transparent, like sometimes I'm feeling that anxiety come up in myself, and I'm using the strategies that I'm going to share today to help me keep that anxiety at a reasonable level so I can still live my life. Now, I'm going to be honest, I was really hesitant to make this video and I kind of procrastinated on it for a little bit, and here's why. I have a pretty strong reactions to videos that feel clickbaity, and I am particularly protective of that when it's around mental health, and so I didn't want to make a video that felt like that. And another thing, I'm clearly not an expert on the coronavirus, and so I did not want to be another voice that was chiming in about, the coronavirus and what to do and all of that stuff. But you know what I am an expert on? Anxiety. That is something I have spent almost my entire career really specializing in and helping people manage. So the anxiety that you're feeling around this pandemic and what's going on and what it means for you, heck yeah, I've got you covered. Today, I'm going to share some of the strategies that I'm using, that I'm teaching my clients, and that can help you manage your anxiety and some of the panic and worry that is probably creeping into your daily life. Now, this might surprise you, but I don't want to take your anxiety away, right? I know, it might surprise you. You might think that's my job. It's okay to have anxiety. I often tell my clients this, that our goal is that your emotions are in proportion to what's going on. So if you're down a dark alley by yourself and you hear a noise rattling and you don't feel a little bit anxious, that's not healthy. That's not normal. We want our level of anxiety to be proportionate to what's going on. So when there's a crisis going on, it's not just okay, it's healthy to have some level of anxiety. The challenge is that for many people, it's crossing over from some level to an extreme amount of anxiety. So what we want to do is to help lower our anxiety so that it's in proportion to what's going on. Now, how do you know what's in proportion? Here's the first tip I want to really hone in on. And if you're a regular on my channel, then you know this one or you've got a head start. And that is, if you want to manage your anxiety and the panic around the coronavirus, you need to look at the data. This is language I use even when we're not talking about sciencey stuff, right? We can take things that make us anxious, break it down, and try to take a more data-driven, factual approach. Sometimes that's much harder with relationships, but it's actually a little bit easier to do with the coronavirus because we have data, science, numbers, statistics, facts. And if you look at those, it is not nearly as alarming as what you see on Facebook. So I want you to look at the data. Go to some news sources that you trust. I might recommend the CDC as a good place to look at the data. Yes, is this a serious issue? Of course. Is it as catastrophic in numbers as people are making it out to be? Not quite. That isn't what the data says. We are not all doomed to die from the coronavirus. The data doesn't support that. So look at the data, acknowledge that there is some risk, but really train your brain to look at the facts and have your anxiety be in proportion with those. I have a previous video and it talks about thinking like a scientist and how that's really helpful for your anxiety. So I will link that here so that you can go watch that, because that is really helpful, not just for coronavirus anxiety, but for anxiety in general. Look at the data, look at the facts, and that is a way to help bring your anxiety down. The second strategy that I want you to use to help reduce the panic and fear around the coronavirus is to turn off the TV news. Yes. Off. That's the button I want you to hit. And I want you to hear me loud and clear. I'm not saying bury your head in the sand and ignore the news and just go about your daily life. That's not healthy or helpful, and I'm certainly not advocating for that. But what I want you to rethink is how you're getting your news. One of the things that TV news and advantage it has over like print news or online news is that it has a lot of stimuli that can heighten emotions, images, tons of color, sound effects, lead-in, reporters' very urgent tones. And all of these things are designed to keep you watching. And you know what keeps people watching? Fear. And this fear is like food for your anxiety. You're afraid, so you watch more. The more you watch, the more afraid you are. It just keeps cycling. So I want you to turn off the TV and I want you to get your news online, or I want you to get it in print, because it is not going to have a lot of those emotion enhancing stimuli, and that's going to help you keep your anxiety at a more manageable level. Find a few news sources that you trust, pick 2 or 3, consume those, and then be done. The third thing that can really help you lower your anxiety about this pandemic is doing your part. Do you remember when you were in school and you would have a test that morning and you'd feel so anxious about the test? However, one of the reasons you felt anxious is because you didn't really study. If I would have been with you, sitting next to you as Dr. Allison back then, and I would have said, okay, in this moment, you don't have test anxiety, you have test didn't preparedness. If you haven't prepared for a test and you're anxious about it, yeah, you're anxious about it because you didn't do your part to prepare. So while there is a lot about the coronavirus that you can't control, there are some things that you can do to protect yourself and to keep yourself healthy. So do those things. That's a way to reduce your likelihood of contracting the coronavirus. The CDC has been very clear about these recommendations, but they're things that, seem pretty self-explanatory. Hand washing, not touching your face, reducing the amount of people that you're around, public spaces, all of these things, they're very factual, and you can go to the CDC website and check them out. Those are things that you can do. They're not that difficult. Do your part, because when you do your part and you follow those recommendations, you are more prepared. And the more prepared you are, within reason, your anxiety will come down. Don't be that person that doesn't study for the test and then wonders why they're anxious because you didn't prepare. Do your part, and some of that anxiety will come down. The fourth strategy is continue to live your life and do the things that bring you joy and do the things that reduce your stress and anxiety, but with revisions. You don't need to stop living your life during this pandemic, but you do probably need to live it a little bit differently. So the things that brought you joy a month ago continue to do those, but you might have to make a few tweaks. The things that help you manage your stress and lower your anxiety, do those. You know what those things are for you, so do those, but you might have to do them a little bit differently. You know what works for you pre-coronavirus. So now that we're feeling stressed and anxious, do those things, but you gotta make some adjustments. If spending time with friends helps lower your anxiety, continue to do that, but in a way that's smart. Don't go out to a bar and all hang out together. Think about being in small numbers, have people in your home, or if you're quarantined or you're really doing some extreme social distancing, then, schedule a time to FaceTime, to be face to face and to just spend time together. You can still do that, but yeah, you have to do it differently. I have really learned for myself that working out is one of the things that helps me keep my stress level and my anxiety down. But right now, the thing that I do to work out, it's in a class-based environment, a lot of people in a tiny little studio, and I have personally decided I don't want to do that during this time. It just feels a little bit too risky for me. However, I'm not just going to stop working out because I know I will quickly be a stressed and anxious mess. So I gotta keep doing what works for me, which is working out, but I have to make some adjustments. I'm gonna do some home YouTube videos and some workouts, and there's a trail by our house that's pretty deserted that I might jog. So I'm gonna do what works for me, what I already know helps, but I'm going to do it differently. You already have ways to manage your stress and keep your anxiety low. You already have things that make you happy and bring you joy. Keep doing those. You don't got to reinvent the wheel. Keep doing them. Just do them a little bit differently. Now, this last point I have saved for the end for an important reason, and it is because as soon as I say this last point about how you can help bring your anxiety down around the coronavirus, my guess is you're actually going to feel a little bit more anxious, but stick with me. I promise it's worth it. One of the most important things you can do for your anxiety in general, but especially right now around this pandemic, is acknowledge that you do not have full control. Now, my guess is when I said that, your stomach did a little flip-flop, and I get that. As humans, we want to think that we have control over our lives. We want to think that we have control over what happens to us, but that is not entirely true. There is so much about being a human being that is outside of our control. What happens to us, the people we love, what goes on around us, it's not fair, it's not predictable, and we don't have full control. And as humans, we are healthiest when we are living with and thinking the truth. It's very hard to do, but that's the goal, is for our thoughts to be accurate and honest and truthful, because that is going to help our emotions be much more proportionate. The reality is you don't have full control in your life over what happens to you. You got some control, you can do your part, but you don't have full control. Every day when you get into your car, you can do your best to be safe. You can wear your seatbelt, you can drive the speed limit, you can follow all the traffic laws, but you can't control what other people do. You can't control the road conditions or some freak thing that falls on the highway. It's outside of your control. And while that might actually sound super anxiety provoking to hear, the sooner that you accept that and we can learn to sit with that truth, the less we will try to grab and gain control when it's not there. We humans love doing that. When we don't have control, we try to force it, we try to grab it, and we try to trick ourselves into thinking we can control every little thing, but we can't. And doing that just increases your anxiety and stresses you out. This is something I spend a ton of time talking about with clients, and often for months and months on end. So I don't think that I'm going to say this on a YouTube video and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. I totally get it. This is a really big concept, but I really want you to start to think about this with anxiety in general, but especially right now with the coronavirus. Do your part, like we talked about earlier. There are things you can do to reduce your risk and keep yourself as healthy as possible. Do those. You got some control. But then also acknowledge and learn to sit with that discomfort of you don't have full control, and those parts there's nothing we can do about. We're going to do our best and learn to sit with the rest. I know this is a really stressful and scary time for a lot of people, and that makes sense. That's normal. That's okay. I don't want you to have no anxiety at all, but I do want you to do your part in managing your emotions and keeping your stress level proportionate to what's going on. Our lives have to continue even in the presence of this pandemic, and there are some things that you can do to help yourself feel better. If you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments below and I will do my very best to answer them. These strategies are actually awesome for anxiety in general, but I want you to think about specifically for the next couple weeks, couple months, really utilizing these to help yourself stay sane and stay afloat. If you want more good stuff like this, more simplified psychology, check out my website, drallisonanswers.com. There's a ton of stuff there that I don't post here on YouTube. And if you're not a regular, but you're here because you saw this video and you're having a ton of anxiety around coronavirus, then stick around, subscribe, come back, hit the like button, subscribe to my newsletter below to get my free ultimate guide to tackling anxiety, because that can help you not just in this coronavirus time, but months and years to come. As always, thank you so much for watching. My thoughts are with all of you and all of us as we manage this difficult time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay sane. Okay, bye-bye.